Thank you, Mr. Hosey. It is a pleasure to serve under your chairship. My constituency of Feltham and Heston had the fourth highest number of signatories to this e-petition. Reflecting, in my view, the humanity of our local community, recognising our rich history of immigration and diversity. With over 150 languages spoken in Hounslow alone, our diversity is also our strength. Neighbours, colleagues, business owners and key workers come from all over the world and contribute to our local economy. This is an important debate that focuses on a very specific issue, action to support undocumented migrants. And I support the call from my honourable friend, the member for Bethnal Green and Bow, for a consensus on how we move forward. Caritas Europa defines the challenge well in saying that while the fight against irregular migration has dominated the political agenda for years, undocumented migrants remain a sizable population in Europe. The lack of a regular resident status often goes hand in hand with a huge amount of suffering and vulnerability. Referred to as undocumented migrants or people without papers, these people may find themselves in a protracted limbo situation, living on the margin of society under continuous stress and anxiety, their basic rights often disregarded. And we know there are hundreds of thousands of undocumented migrants, as has been said in this debate, being blocked from booking COVID vaccinations, despite government ministers saying everyone should have access to vaccines, regardless of immigration status. As a result, we are all less safe. Now, this issue is not without complexity, but we cannot be without humanity and compassion. The current system locks people out of vital services, often families with children. The research conducted by the Joint Council for the Welfare of Immigrants shows that 82% of respondents to their surveys entered the UK through legal routes and later fell out of status. Expensive and stressful reapplication processes, which can cost over £12,000 by the time genuine cases are granted indefinite leave to remain, push families into enormous debt that lasts for years. These extortionate fees are not a deterrent. Instead, they push people into exploitative work. These are people who are ambitious to do well for themselves, their families, and their adopted country. This was the case with Navin, not his real name, who JCWI noted became undocumented after he was wrongly advised by a lawyer that his leave was still valid. He attempted to rectify this when right-to-work checks meant that he lost his steady job in a restaurant. He couldn't afford to pay the fees required to regularise the status of his entire family, leaving them all undocumented. He took on cash-in-hand work at a car wash. He was regularly underpaid or simply not paid at all, and feared that social services would take his children away if they found out about his situation. He said, "My kids were born here, and I don't know where else I would go. I've got nothing back in Mauritius at all, no family, no one I know. I left when I was young, a long time ago, and here I have my life and my family." In so many cases, falling out of status is due to situations outside of the control of the migrant. JCWI's research found that this can happen for that variety of reasons too, including relationship breakdown, domestic violence, poor legal advice, inability to pay those extremely high fees, or a simple mistake. But once a migrant falls out of crisis, out of status, it can be very difficult to obtain it again. And this impact of falling out of status results in people being trapped in limbo. Like these stories, the vast majority of undocumented migrants have been settled in the UK for more than 5 years, or indeed more than 10, and they arrived legally. The UK has the second largest number of undocumented migrants in Europe, behind Germany. And the insecurity and often destitution of these families has worsened through the pandemic, with many dependent also on food banks. It's an intractable solution that needs a different approach. That's why I believe it is time the government reforms the current system to create a simplified route to regularisation, so that migrants can access services, rent a home, work and pay taxes, and live a life free from fear. Now, addressing these, the damagingly high application fees alongside simplifying the process is an approach that has been taken in Ireland. And according to the Institute for Public Policy Research, there are also precedents for an amnesty policy intervention. And it's interesting to see that Greece, Italy, and Portugal have all implemented amnesty programs in recent months. There's also clear economic evidence. If undocumented migrants can move out of informal employment and into more secure jobs, there are many benefits for wider society. According to The Economist, studies in America suggest that citizenship for their 11 million undocumented immigrants could boost the economy, with GDP rising up to $1.5 trillion over 10 years. So in conclusion, Mr. Hosey, undocumented migrants clearly need a different way that they and their families can move forward. The JVCI powerfully remarks that once someone becomes undocumented, the criminalization of their everyday lives drives them into exploitation. Their voices are silenced. They are almost unable to tell anyone about their plight. Under the hostile environment, almost everyone who should keep them safe are part of the system of immigration enforcement and surveillance, trying to rip them away from their families and their homes. Mr. Hosey, we need a sensitive, long-term solution to the undocumented migrants crisis. As a first step, we should make it easier for those who are undocumented to become regularized by simplifying the process and reform the extremely high fees, which means that people cannot pay for visa applications. Surely, in the interest of our economy, effective administration, which COVID now demands, and in the interest of humanity, there needs to be a much better answer to undocumented migrants than we have now. Thank you.